Hey, hello, everybody. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo Pulse, where we interview some of the most successful business people, executives, economists, market strategists to get their perspectives on the world and as they see the world. So today we have with us Phil Panaro. Phil Panaro is former founder and CEO of Boston Consulting Group Platinion in North America. So Phil, it's great to have you on my show. Thank you for agreeing to this.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
All right, great. So Phil, what was fascinating about having this meeting today on the podcast, after speaking to you and listening and reading to your article, was your epiphany about the metaverse. So share with us this epiphany.
Yes. So the metaverse, as you know, in the last week or two has gotten beaten up with Facebook, which has turned its name into Meta's earnings, which have been terrible. And as a result of that, they basically have painted a broad brush over the metaverse. But what I'm here to say today is that the metaverse is actually the future. And specifically, what is the metaverse? It's just another evolution of the internet. So just like when the internet came out in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, people were like, what is the internet? What purpose does it serve? It only seems to be just a static piece of data that you can read out of a dictionary. And then today you see there's social platforms, there's trading platforms, and you basically can't live your life without the internet. Well, the metaverse is the same thing, only it's the internet in 3D. It's the virtual internet. So it's just the next stage of the internet. And to give you an idea of the epiphany and how profound it's going to impact, you should look at the investment report from Goldman, Morgan Stanley, and Citibank. They estimate that the metaverse is going to impact $8 to $12 trillion in the economy by 2030. So you must say, wow, trillion, 8 to 12 trillion. So how do you get there? Or is it just a made up number?
Right.
Yeah. So if you look at today's economy globally, it's around 80 trillion. And right now, that economy from a digital aspect, the internet, is around 20 billion. So it's around 1/4 of it. So what we see happening is that the metaverse is going to evolve both within and on the side of the internet to be more immersive experience for customers, clients, and usage. And what we see is that being half of the internet economy or the digital economy by 2030. So that's how they get the figure of around 10 trillion, essentially half of the digital economy. So you can't ignore that. So then you must say, is it hype or is it real?
Right.
So the best way to address that is that, the metaverse has taken stages. People have used flight simulators for years. That's just another version of the metaverse. If you go shopping on Shopify, you actually go into it in augmented reality and you buy goods and you can actually place it in your house. If you go on Zillow and you're too tired to go to the house, there's some houses that are in 3D where you actually can go into the real house and walk around them. From a business standpoint, look at what's happening with the metaverse. It's here right now. BMW has built an entire plant digitally first before they actually built it physically. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, they actually even train their robots in the digital world before they actually put them on the floor. Whole cities are being built with the metaverse using digital twins, which just is you build it digitally before you build it physically. So if you look at Neom, which is a city right now in Saudi Arabia with a budget of almost 500 billion, they're doing it digitally first before they're building it physically. So literally every single aspect, from buying goods to building factories to building cities to actually even entertainment, to give you an example, Ariana Grande, and it's, I'm not the biggest fan, but she actually just recently had a concert in Fortnite that drew more people to the concert than in her live concert. Travis too. So the bottom line is it's here, it's now, and basically Facebook has actually been given it a bad name.
So Phil, there's a lot that you said there, which is all great stuff, as we spoke about numerous times. And the great thing about what you did is you were able to break down and simplify to help people really understand what the metaverse is. So for you, just to summarize, the epiphany for you is the 12 to 15 trillion dollars of potential business that these analysts at these various institutions are forecasting over the next 10 years, correct? Is that right?
By 2030.
By 2030. Okay, by 2030. So that's tremendous as it relates to GDP in this country, right? So that was kind of the epiphany for you, number one. And then number two, you had to then break it down in the most simplistic form to help you understand what is the metaverse? What is this exactly? And how are we going to apply this to business? So just do me a favor and just back up for a second if you could, if you didn't say it already. So if I have no idea about the metaverse and I'm 13 years old, explain it to me in the most simplest form what the metaverse is.
Well, I'll actually explain it to you in your form as a private banker. So say, for instance, somebody lives overseas and they want to make sure you're real. You can actually set up cameras so they can go overseas with the call and go into your house and sit in front of your desk and talk to you, and you can have your offerings over your head.
They don't need now. Do they need to wear these Oculus glasses to get that experience?
No, in fact, part of the reason why Facebook has given the metaverse a bad name, which is now Meta, is because they focused on the headset. The bottom line is that in order to use a headset, you need 5G. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the new Oculus headsets, which they call Quest Pro, cost $1,500. So most of the world doesn't have that. And then the last thing is most of the people don't want to wear them. So the bottom line is if you can't do it off your phone, it's not going to be mass accepted. And right now, the metaverse is in its investment stage, just like the internet in the early 90s was its investment stage. It hasn't reached the tipping point where it's become mass accepted, where everybody goes to it. And the only way it's going to be mass accepted, and when we talk about Facebook/Meta, I'll talk about how they can change their whole strategy, is if you get the metaverse on your phone. And to give you an idea how simple it is, people understand Zillow and people understand looking at houses to buy houses. Zillow has made a feature using Matterport, which is a program where you actually go into the real house and go into room by room and see that house. So if a realtor can set up these cameras and any person can go look at it, you could see it could be adopted easily. But the key is to adopt it off your smartphone or your phone.
Okay, so what you're saying is, as an example, me as the private banker, somebody is in another country that wants to do business with me. Through the iPhone, they'll be able to virtually go into my office and be able to sit with me with the presentation behind me. So the iPhone is going to be their way into, that would be what, augmented reality, or is that virtual?
Augmented reality. And in fact, where the business opportunity is more so is in augmented reality, not in the virtual reality. And that has been the mistake I'm going to get into that Facebook made to begin with. People don't want to deal with advertising a meeting. People want to deal with real people in a meeting in real places.
Right. So I got that. And then let's go back to Zillow for a second, because I thought this was fascinating. And I also want to talk about, for example, Best Buy. If let's start with Zillow. So I have an interest in purchasing a home. I can't get to the home for whatever reason. So I can go on Zillow and I could, through augmented reality, I could take my phone and boom, I'm inside the home and I can go room by room, which will give me the experience as if I'm there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And through doing that, from a business perspective, if I'm Zillow, that'll help push along the sale of that home.
Yes. And if you don't have that, you would be hurt in terms of the sale of home for firms that actually have that technology that offer that.
Right.
And what I'm trying to say is it's mass accepted because you don't have complicated technology people coming to the house to set this up. If you look on Zillow, at least 10% of their listings are like that. So obviously it's already here and it's now.
Wow. And then in terms of, if I had an interest in purchasing a flat screen TV for my home, walk me through that experience. Because right now, if I have an interest in a flat screen TV, I don't know if I want a 75 or 65 inch. I'm kind of going home and putting tape on the wall and measuring things out and trying to figure it out that way. So explain to me the way you did on how this can help me with the sale of TVs as an example of this metaverse.
And you could see how a firm that would have this capability would have an advantage over a firm that didn't. So if you're a person who doesn't know the size of the TV or even the color of the TV, you can actually go on Shopify, or even you can go on Amazon. They have the capability of augmented reality. And also Walmart has actually put that capability out in the market where you can go in and basically pick out the TV you want and put it on your wall. And you'll see it virtually on your wall and you'll see whether it fits, because it'll be exactly the dimension and it'll be exactly the color. So maybe you wanted black and then you determine you want white. and you could see, for instance, whether it fits or not, rather than go to the store, buy it, pick it up, or have it delivered, and then find out it's too late that it's on the wall and it doesn't fit.
So for me, Phil, that was like when you started to explain this to me, the Zillow and this example of the TV on your wall. For me, that's that 10 to 12 trillion dollars over the next 10 years, how I can see it could push consumers along for purposes, which is truly amazing. So now your epiphany, we got 10 to 12 trillion dollars, why you got really interested. Then you trained yourself, did your research to understand the metaverse, and you explained it to us how we can see this working in the economy. So the third part I want you to walk the audience through is the internet. When it started, web 0 to 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0, can you just walk us through what that looks like?
And I'm going to make this very simple. I believe in the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid.
I know you do. That's why I love talking to you.
So in the early 90s, essentially, Web 1.0 came out, which was nothing more than a Wikipedia page, which was more than a dictionary page of fixed static text. That was the age of the desktop. People would look at the internet in the early 90s on their desktop, and they would get information. There was no social platforms. There was no trading platforms. There was no buying and selling of goods at that point in time. At that point in time, also, we weren't at a tipping point. Just like the metaverse, people made fun of the internet. What is this for? Do we need it? Is it really necessary? And you could see firms that didn't create websites today are probably out of business. Web 2.0 came out, which was really the focus on trading goods and services, where Amazon took advantage of that in the early 2000s. At that point in time, you had a digital exchange of goods. And what you also had was large companies such as Facebook and Google basically being an intermediary for the exchange of data and taking your data to use it for you to buy goods or to sell you things. That was really important because people who made fun of Amazon or weren't sure if should we buy goods over the internet, today, after COVID, when you had no choice not to go to the physical store, they're out of business essentially. So you could see how important it is. So now Web 3.0 comes up, which is essentially a whole new version of the internet. It's actually what they call a decentralized version, which is more blockchain driven. This allows you to have a more immersive experience where you actually don't look at the internet, but you actually go into the internet. So to give you the perfect example, you go into that house and you see that house a lot better than looking at a page. From a travel aspect, just to give you an idea from a travel perspective, I have a client who is a country essentially, and they want to increase their travel destinations. Rather than looking at the travel page, people can go to the location and see the sites and see what's around it and get more interested in it. So you can see it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the metaverse is here, and those who don't adopt will technically be out of business, just like the firms that didn't create websites and just like the firms that didn't do transactions.
So Phil, what you're saying about the Web 3.0, right? A country situation or whatever it may be. Are we going to actually go to a URL and be typing in a Web 3.0 page?
No, and that's where, I'm trying not to get so complicated and keep this very, very simple. The difference between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 is it's driven by blockchain, which basically is a peer-to-peer type of a transaction. And what that will do, just to give you an idea, is where today, this is really important, on Web 2.0, the only thing you can buy on the internet is your domain name, believe it or not. Right. You can't own anything else but your domain name. And you could post a video, but YouTube can take it down. Right. But in Web 3.0, and this is really important for Facebook or Meta, everything you make, buy, or sell on the internet is yours. It's going to usher in the age of entrepreneurialism, where individuals will create their own business. And this time, they don't have to go to a central body to disintermediate it, like eBay or something like that. They can actually sell it peer-to-peer. So to give a perfect example, in Web 2.0, if you want to sell music, you go to Spotify, and Spotify takes a commission by allocating that music elsewhere. On Web 3.0, you can sell your music to somebody else, and that person can sell it to somebody else, and you own it throughout the whole chain because it's peer-to-peer. And you actually would collect money. This is also going to drive cryptocurrency and the adoption of cryptocurrency in the future. Because if you're in a immersive environment and you're in a virtual environment, the way you actually buy goods is virtual, and the currency you potentially would use is virtual, which gives a meaning for cryptocurrency, which had no meaning other than being speculative.
No, that's phenomenal. So let's talk about Facebook. So why did Zuckerberg get it wrong? When we talked about this together, it was really interesting. It's almost like he had a retention strategy, right? To sort of retain his competitive moat in the social media world. This is where he started to make the investments in Metaverse, which you believe that's not really how he's going to get his multiple up. He'll be able to retain his business, and that's, and that's great based on his strategy, based on what we talked about. But he could be doing so much more than what he's doing. So talk through how Zuckerberg has it right, but yet has it wrong.
Yes. So actually, Mark Zuckerberg is spot on to link his company to the metaverse. So I want to make that clear. There's been so much press that's come out over the last 2 or 3 weeks based on their terrible earnings that, the metaverse is the cause of all of this. So the bottom line is his strategy to link it to the metaverse is right. But his focus is wrong. He's focused on it from a social media aspect. And let's take this piece by piece. Right now, when you're in a growth stock mode, you're over 20 if you're a technology stock in terms of their multiple. Since they made this announcement, their multiple has gone down to 10 or less. And the reason why is the metaverse strategy has, which is a social media focus, is only on retaining that space is the key thing. In other words, he's going to create a more immersive experience for his social media, which is 3 billion clients, so that they don't leave to other platforms. So that's important that he does that. But if you look at his investments, where he invested, I think, over 15 billion in the reality labs, which is to build the headsets, he just doesn't get it. I mean, he has 3 billion people that he has, which is almost 40% of the world population. If you look at the world population of 3 billion, 75% of those people don't have 5G, so they can't use the headset. Another probably half of whatever's left can't afford $1,500 or even $500. And
For the glass, for the glass.
for the Oculus glasses to do, and the last set don't want to wear them at all. So what he should be focused on is he should be focused on the tipping point, and he has the right idea with the metaverse. He's 100% right. He has 3 billion clients. So what do you need? You need mass adoption. So he should be focusing on the metaverse from the smartphone. That's where he should be focused. And then what he should be focused on is have something to do with the social media to make it more immersive, but he should pivot and focus on the business opportunities, because he has what no other firm has. He has 3 billion people on his platform, which essentially, based on my description before, is 3 billion entrepreneurs, which potentially can create businesses on art, trade goods, or bottom line is they can get into any area of business because now there's no more restrictions with Web 3.0. Right. So he has something that nobody else has, and he's made investments, but what he can do is pivot those investments more on the business side, and he can actually still clean up. It's so early in the process. There's a big new pie to eat from, and there's plenty for him to eat, even if he's made mistakes. You learn from your mistakes, you move forward. So I actually think if he switches to a business focus, where he makes his user community provide platforms for business opportunities, and also he focuses more on the business opportunities in the metaverse, he can clean up.
Yeah, it'll be tremendous. His multiple will go up as a result of that.
And because what he'll be focusing on is what they call white space. White space is where you get the multiple over 20. Those are areas of business that he's not in now that he can grow.
Right. So let's pivot, and I just want to give another example of this digital world, right? Let's use Singapore. So tell us about Singapore, how they use the digital city to move forward and create efficiencies in investments that they're making within their city.
So Singapore was the first city that created a digital twin of the city. And to give you an exact idea of what they've done is there was a lot of actual heat in the center of the city. So what they did was they did modeling to make sure they impact the winds from the sea so that the center of the city would actually get more cool air. So they actually designed all the buildings going forward as a result of the digital twin. That's one example. But the broader example is what NEOM is doing. And I'm not talking about it from a confidential standpoint. This is all public information. The NEOM is that city in Saudi Arabia that the prince is building, and he's investing 500 billion. Most construction of cities these days is physical. What he's doing he's building it digital first. So by doing it digital first, you can actually see, for instance, what stores should be located where the police buildings should be, where the schools should be, where the convenience stores should be, so that you can plan it logically in reference to how it's convenient to the people in the city first. Also in reference to rents that you may want to charge, you could see where most of the traffic would flow. So it's a genius idea in reference to city planning. To give you another idea, without talking about client specifics, you could think of the Panama Canal, essentially. The Panama Canal, if you fly over it, you see 100 ships outside of there. And the key is they have to get through the canal as fast as possible, or they lose time on shipping. There's almost 100 countries that go through there. By creating a metaverse for the people on those ships, it'll be in their language. They'll know where the gas is. They'll know where the convenience store is. The Panama Canal can actually simulate the logistics of bringing one ship before another and actually go it through so they can facilitate the movement. The idea is, just so you know, and also another example, Panamanian Airport. In Panama, most of the people, 80 to 90% of the people connect to Panama and leave. They just built a new terminal for $1 billion. Now, for those people who've been to JFK or Kennedy, whenever there's a new terminal built, what happens? You miss your flight, you can't find where you need to go, and it's a complete disaster.
Yes.
Basically, after the billions of investment, everybody's cursing out the airport. Well, Panama Airport got smart this time, and they said, since 90% of the people are connecting, when people land, we'll give them an application, just like Google Earth, where they land in the old terminal, we'll literally walk them through to the new terminal so they don't miss their flight. So this is what I mean. Like, the metaverse is here. And, people who talk about its hype, or, basically Mark Zuckerberg killed it, they really have to better understand the practical examples.
Yeah, what I've been saying is that this technology that we're used to, which is the Googles and the Microsofts of the world, and everything they brought to the forefront, was really like made things operationally better. It's like back office stuff. This stuff is like frontline stuff that's going to create efficiency for businesses or cities, which is going to create more profitability. And that's why this frontline stuff is going to be so critical for the economy going forward, which I think is going to be tremendous. Phil, why don't people understand the metaverse as you do right now? Why do you think?
I hate to blame it on Mark Zuckerberg, but the problem is the metaverse was initially sold. There wasn't a lot of attention on the metaverse until Facebook changed their name to Meta. After that happened, you saw all the stocks run up that were metaverse stocks. You saw all the people go around it. But the problem was, again, it was all around the headset. And people have aversion to the headsets who are just not gamers. People have a lot of aversion to social media these days. They were not looking at it from a business aspect and how it could be applied to business. And what I'm saying is, if a firm like a NVIDIA, who actually focuses on the business aspects of the metaverse, are wildly successful, and they're pulling out tools right now to actually help. So for instance, BMW factories built with the metaverse tool, and I can go on and on about NVIDIA's Omniverse, which is what their tool is, that actually helps build the metaverse and digital twins. Mm-hmm. And there's other firms too, just so you know. Since
which I want to go through, right? So as you know, Phil, I have an emerging technology manager that we partnered with, which I'm really excited about. And we talked, one of the questions I had asked, his name is Mark Weiss, is Mark, how do you find the next opportunity in emerging technology? And he had said to me, he goes, well, he follows with the large companies who have cash where they're making investments. For example, Facebook is making investments in the metaverse, right? Just as an example. And he tries to find pure plays in this space. So there are public companies out there today that are taking advantage of the metaverse. And so we talked about this, Phil, like Metaport is one of them. Bentley is another. Do you mind just kind of talking through these companies that are public? We're not making recommendations to buy or sell these securities. We're just talking out loud. Companies that are public that are kind of pure plays in this particular environment.
Yeah. So what I think we should do is break them down into their social media focus or business focus.
Yes.
The firms that are social media focused is Meta. And as I mentioned, that's just to defend their space, to make sure they provide a more immersive experience for social media. That's I don't see that as being very profitable. They need to shift to a business perspective. The other firm, which is the complete opposite, is NVIDIA, where they're completely focused on the business aspects of the metaverse and have been successful, but in a much more quiet way. And people don't understand that. And just so you know, they don't involve headsets, is my point. It involves real practical examples that they use to build factories, to build cities, to actually do maintenance of steam generators, whole bunch of things. You name it, they're involved. Now, this is to give you an idea. Their tools have been out, but they've actually started to mature where they're being used more and more today, which is why you haven't heard of it now. Most of their tools are being released right now, and they're going to mature and get better and better. So another example, which is kind of the midstream, is Microsoft, because Microsoft has platforms for people, individual people, and they also have platforms for business. So they're kind of in the middle. If you look at it, you have Meta, Microsoft, and then you have like NVIDIA. Now, there's also some firms where you can't kind of lose, which is the firms that actually help build these digital twins and help build the metaverse, such as a firm like a Unity, where there's just the software and the programming tools. The other firm you mentioned, which is Matterport, is used mostly on the real estate side. And, at the beginning of a cycle, as you've seen with internets, a lot of those companies, if they don't pivot and expand their use, the bigger companies eat their space.
Right.
So you have to be really careful on investments at this stage in the metaverse. In fact, my friends asked me in November, where should we invest in the metaverse? And I said, I think the market's going to go down in total. Wait for it to completely wash out and then look at some metaverse investments.
Yeah, I agree. That's great advice. Phil, anything else to close on that you think is important as it relates to this conversation?
I think the most important thing to know is the metaverse is not hype. It's being used now. I've given several practical examples. And if you're not on the train with the metaverse, you're going to get run over by the train.
Excellent, Phil. Listen, thank you very much. This is really knowledgeable and helpful. We appreciate your time today and look forward to continuing the discussion for a while to come.
Thank you very much and have a beautiful day. Appreciate it.
Now, Phil. Thank you.